She tried to ruin my birthday by saying it was against the condo rules. But she ended up getting kicked out in front of everyone. You won't believe why. It all started when I decided to have my birthday party in the building's common area. Like many neighbors had already done, I booked everything properly, gave advance notice, but the day before, the building manager showed up saying he didn't authorize it. No reason. It seemed personal. I've always been a low-key person. But this year, after so much stress, loss, and disappointment, I decided to celebrate my birthday differently. It wasn't a huge party. I just wanted to gather a few close friends and family and enjoy a light day. After all, after everything I'd been through, I deserved it. I live in a mid-sized condominium where we have a very nice common area, small room with a barbecue grill, tables, and an open space. I've seen several parties held there, gender reveal parties, children's birthdays, and even a civil wedding last month. So, for me, it was something common and allowed. I did everything right. 2 weeks before, I went to the reception and filled out the venue's reservation form. I spoke to the doorman, who handed me the management form. I filled it out, signed it, and left it in the building manager's box, as was always done. I even took photos of the completed form, just in case. They confirmed the reservation. I was relieved. I started planning what I would do. I decorated with some flowers and simple balloons, bought a beautiful cake with my name on it, and ordered snacks. Nothing extravagant. I just wanted a quiet, special moment with the ones I love. I even considered playing some background music, one of those Spotify playlists with soft, low-beat vibes. The day before, I started setting up a few things and organized a list of my guests' arrival times. Everything was under control. But late in the afternoon, out of nowhere, the intercom rang. It was the doorman saying the building manager wanted to speak with me. I went downstairs, thinking it was some instructions, some detail, but I was greeted coldly. She, holding a piece of paper, said with a scowl, "You are not authorized to hold any parties tomorrow. The common area is closed indefinitely." I was speechless. I asked why. She simply said she decided that parties were disturbing the residents' peace. But what peace? I hadn't even done anything yet. I showed her the completed reservation form, dated and everything, and then she changed her tone. "This document is not valid without my signature, and I didn't sign anything." That's when I realized this wasn't about rules, it was personal. The building manager had never liked me. Ever since she was elected, she'd been picky about everything. Once, I complained about the slow elevator maintenance, and ever since, she'd looked at me as maybe she was offended. But that didn't give her the right to stop me from celebrating my birthday. I took a deep breath and calmly spoke. "Look, I did everything correctly. I have confirmation from the concierge records that the area was available, and other residents who also reserved it this way. I just want to celebrate my birthday. There will be no loud music or disturbances." She was harsh. "If you insist, I'll be within my rights to call the police and fine you. I'm not asking, I'm ordering." I returned to my apartment, feeling a mixture of anger and indignation. This was unfair. I spent the night awake, stewing over the situation, but the next day, something inside me decided I wouldn't back down. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I had the right. I called two neighbors I'm good friends with. Both said they'd been through this with her. One of them even mentioned that the building manager herself had used the space for her grandson's birthday party, and no one stopped her. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. The residents were tired of her. I gathered screenshots, confirmed with the doorman that my reservation was registered, and went to talk to other neighbors. Most supported me. Many were already uncomfortable with her abuse and authoritarianism. I decided the party would go ahead, with or without her approval. And so begins the most unbelievable part of my story. I talked to the residents, and they all supported me. I threw the party anyway, simple, with background music and no fuss. In the middle of the celebration, she came in yelling, saying I was disrespecting her orders as the building manager. The day dawned cloudy, but my heart was firm. All night I thought about giving up, canceling everything, and pretending I didn't care. But the truth is, I was tired of backing down in the face of authoritarian people. I hadn't done anything wrong. I had a right to celebrate my birthday. A bitter building manager wasn't going to stop me. I woke up early, set the table with the new tablecloth my sister had brought as a gift, hung the balloons, and set the table with snacks and the cake. Nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing that could be classified as a loud party. It was an afternoon coffee with soft music and light conversation. A celebration anyone could have at home. And that's exactly what I thought. If she wants to be a pain, she'll have to come up with a better excuse. The first guests arrived around 3 p.m. My parents, my brother, 2 friends from work, and a neighbor from the 401. All of them were smiling, hugging me, congratulating me. One of them even said, "Today's your day, you don't let anyone ruin it." The music was low. I placed a Bluetooth speaker on the table with an instrumental playlist. Just jazz and lo-fi. Nothing that would disturb even a sleeping baby. Around 4 p.m., with more people present, I heard heavy footsteps coming down the stairs. The elevator had been under maintenance for Dyson. Other issue with this woman's management. From a distance, I saw her figure emerging in the hallway, tense arms crossed, and with that look of superiority that only someone who loves a position of temporary power can maintain. She entered the room without saying good afternoon, without any sign of respect. He simply pointed his finger and said loudly, "Turn off that music now. You were notified, and you still decided to disobey the condominium rules. This is a serious violation." The party stopped. Everyone fell silent. My elderly mother stood up, startled, thinking something serious had happened. I remained calm. "Good afternoon. As you can see, I'm at my party, which was booked in advance, and is within the rules of condominium living. Low music, a small number of people, no noise beyond what's acceptable. I'm simply exercising my rights." She moved even closer, clearly intending to intimidate. "You don't have my permission. The area is my responsibility, and I decide what's allowed and what's not. And I've already said you're not allowed." At that moment, my brother.com, and always very objective, stood up and said, "Excuse me, but the residents are the ones who decide. You don't own the condominium, you're just an elected building manager. And if you want to call the police, feel free. We have footage, a reservation record, screenshots, and witnesses." She paled. For the first time, she lost her composure. Her arrogance gave way to a slight tremor in her hand, which she tried to hide by adjusting her purse. But she didn't back down. She grabbed her cell phone, hurried out, and shouted loudly in the hallway, "You're all going to regret this. You're all disrespecting the condominium authority." Some guests laughed, others tensed, but everyone stayed. And what's more, the party only grew. A neighbor from 302, who saw everything, showed up with a soda. The woman from 604 brought brigade. It almost became a collective celebration. And the best part, while the party continued, one of the residents, a lawyer, got to get the printed condominium bylaws, with markings on the articles that clearly showed that my reservation was valid, and that use of the hall could only be barred with documented and prior justification. None of that had happened. In the condominium group, messages of support began to pop up. People said, "Enough of this dictatorship. She thinks she owns the building." And even former residents recounted stories of abuse by her as the building manager. One resident even shared an audio recording of her, the building manager, cursing. Another neighbor, over a renovation approved at a meeting. Little by little, her mask was slipping, and I could see it in the looks on her face. That birthday was no longer just mine. It was the trigger many had been waiting for to assert their rights there. The tense atmosphere gave way to lightness. The music continued, people chatted, and there, sitting with a piece of cake in my hand, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. But little did I know that the true highlight was yet to come. Because at the end of that afternoon, what happened was much bigger than a party interrupted. It was the beginning of the end of the era of tyranny in that tower. After that confrontation, I confess I was on high alert. At any moment, I expected the building manager to return with some kind of more serious threat, or even with a patrol car, given her authoritarian manner. But, curiously, she disappeared for a few hours. Meanwhile, activity in the condominium group increased. The video of the argument my brother recorded began to circulate among residents. People were shocked by the way she spoke to me, by her threatening tone, by her rudeness, and, most importantly, by her blind certainty that she could dictate and command as she pleased. It was then, amid the messages, that someone wrote something that lit a collective fuse. If anyone still has any doubts about the kind of building manager she is, look for the video from last month's meeting, the one where she cuts off the microphone of the resident who tried to ask a question about the renovation project. Another replied, "She did the same thing to me." She said my daughter couldn't play in the hallway because it disturbed the flow, even though the hallway is wide, and no one else complained, and more messages came. One resident recalled when the building manager refused an elderly man's request to install a handrail in the elevator lobby, even with a medical report. He said it wasn't a priority. Another said her son's bicycle was removed from the bike rack without warning, with the threat of a fine. Little by little, the reports formed a pattern. She used her position as building manager to exert power, control through fear, and silence any opposition. She was a tyrant with the building manager's badge. Meanwhile, my neighbor from 301, the lawyer who had brought the printed bylaws, returned with a surprise. He had filed a request with the previous administration to access the condominium accounts, which were over 6 months overdue for publication. And what he discovered there was, to say the least, disturbing. There was excessive spending on maintenance that was never done, invoices from contractors no one ever saw working in the building, and a painting job contracted but never completed. All of this was approved by her end without public accountability. He immediately told me, "This needs to be taken seriously. We have grounds to call a special meeting and remove her from office." What she did today was the final straw. And another bombshell surfaced. A former resident of 702, who had left the building the previous year, sent an audio message to the group saying she was pressured to leave the building after questioning the building manager about an overcharged condominium fee. She said she was harassed, received unjustified warnings, and even had her intercom cut off for weeks. This message circulated quickly. Several residents remembered her. She was nice, calm, and participated in meetings. And no one knew exactly why she had left. Now it made sense. It felt like the party had liberated people, as if everyone had finally found the courage to speak their feelings for so long. A collective silence was being broken. And there, in the midst of my celebration, with children playing in the corner, my mother smiling and sitting next to the cake, and my friends chatting calmly, everything was changing. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about an entire building saying enough is enough. At 6 p.m., the lawyer neighbor created a Google form calling for a special meeting to remove the building manager. In less than 2 hours, more than half the residents signed. The doorman, who had watched in silence, whispered to me, "Look, lady, this building has needed this for a long time. She's even humiliated an employee here. Everyone can see it." Late in the afternoon, one of the residents, who runs a local Instagram reporting channel, posted an anonymous video without showing faces describing what happened there that Saturday. The video went viral among residents groups in the city. And to top it all off, someone sent screenshots of a conversation where the building manager called the residents uneducated scum. The icing on the cake. It was the beginning of the end. Returned to my apartment after an intense day, feeling tired but also victorious. I didn't ask for war. I asked for respect, and I ended up being the trigger for a silent revolution that was already about to explode. And that's when I knew, on Sunday, at 10 a.m., there would be a meeting, in person, called by us, the residents. The building manager's fate would be decided by the person she tried to silence. Sunday dawned with clear skies and a different energy in the air. The kind of morning when you feel like something is about to truly change. The call for the extraordinary meeting had been a success. In less than 24 hours, more than half of the condominium owners had signed the online form and confirmed their attendance. The meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. in the party room itself, the same one where, the day before, the building manager had tried to shut down my celebration. It would be ironic if it weren't so symbolic. When I arrived, the room was already full. Neighbors I'd never seen in person were there, gathered with firm gazes, talking in hushed voices, holding copies of the bylaws, notes, and recordings on their cell phones. People who had lived under her authoritarianism for years, now ready to say, enough is enough. She showed up promptly at 10 a.m. She entered with a black briefcase in her hand, a cold expression on her face, and tried to sit at the table in front, but the mood was different now. She was no longer in control. The lawyer from 301, who led the meeting, opened the meeting firmly and politely. He explained the reason for the meeting, cited the recorded reports, the videos, the audio recordings, the abuses. He spoke about the lack of accountability, the misuse of her duties, and the way she ran the condominium with authoritarianism and disregard. She tried to interrupt several times. She even raised her voice, saying it was all lies. that they were conspiring against her. But no one was shaken. For the first time, people didn't bow their heads. Then a woman from 500 to stood up and said something that struck me. You no longer represent us. There's no dialogue, no respect. And when someone tries to do something for the good of the building, you sabotage it. This isn't a dictatorship, it's a community. There was 15 seconds of silence, and then, applause. Lots of it. Sincere. That moment sealed the building manager's fate. The vote was taken right there, by simple ballots. Everyone present signed, and when the lawyer announced the result, I felt my heart pound. By absolute majority, the current building manager is removed from office, effective immediately. She stood there, motionless, her eyes wide, unresponsive. For the first time, he didn't say a word. He simply rose slowly from his chair, grabbed his bag, and left silently. The sound of the living room door closing behind her was almost like the sound of liberation. Some residents cried, others hugged. But what no one expected was what would come next. While everyone was organizing the end of the meeting, the new provisional board suggested an immediate inspection of the management documents. They opened the small room she kept locked, where the condominium files were kept, and inside, they found what appeared to be her personal file with copies of unjustified warnings, records of residents she monitored, and even a notebook with ironic notes about her neighbors. On one of the pages, I read my name, so-and-so, from 303, arrogant, thinks she can do anything. If she tries to throw a party, stop her immediately. I laughed, a laugh of relief. She planned my humiliation, but the universe planned hers. The following week, the entire building looked different. People were smiling in the elevators, open meetings were being scheduled, decisions were being made democratically. The new interim building manager was a calm man who listened before speaking, and me, I unintentionally became a symbol of a turning point. Some residents joked that the party in 303 was the tower's revolution. Others called me the resident who overthrew the queen of the castle. I didn't do it for revenge, I did it for justice. I did it because I learned, that Saturday afternoon, that silence cannot be allowed to become an accomplice to oppression. Today, every time I see the hall decorated with new parties, with children playing, with neighbors socializing, I feel proud, because I know that, in the midst of a simple birthday cake, a change was born. And honestly, that was the best gift I could have received.